So now we're going live now. So now we are live. So okay, sir. In the meantime, can I share it for you if you're having difficulty with sharing your slide?
I think you have to do that.
Okay, it's no problem. Just downloaded it and then okay, I think you're already sharing it. You just shared it just now. You just shared your screen just now. You just shared it just now. It's no problem.
Wow.
Okay, well, I'll share my screen for you, sir. Save time. Okay, I'm sharing my screen. Okay, sir.
Okay, thank you. Good evening once again, everyone. I have a short presentation on the query keyword in programming. It's just for us to just discuss that query as a keyword in programming, and so I have just a few slides that we'll just talk through shortly. And so can we go to the next slide?
Okay, sir.
So this is the outline, the background, the importance of query in programming, the concept, the anatomy, and then we'll look at the querying in web development as well as querying in programming languages, the role of query, and then give some examples, and we'll talk about best practice. And then, of course, there's nothing that doesn't have challenges. We'll look at the challenges and how to navigate them. The next slide, please.
Okay, sir.
Yeah, so this is my first slide. This is the background where we talk about in programming, a query is actually a process or a request for information from a data source, especially in a structured data collection. Oh, sorry. Especially in a structured data collection. So you send a query to fetch data or get any particular data that you want from such structured environment.
Okay, sir.
And
You can continue. I just want to open it using
yeah,
my browser. I think with the browser
okay.
you can see most of it.
Okay, so I just want us to, the objective of this is for us to understand the concept. At the end of the session, we should be able to understand the concept, understand how to have an idea of how to write queries, how it helps to optimize performance of your system, and how we can use it, which is recognized application, as well as to address some of the challenges that come with it.
So if I'm in the
The
waiting room,
next slide, sir?
so if I'm in the waiting room, so I want to admit them all.
Okay.
Okay.
So my next slide talks about the importance of query in programming. We have data retrieval. So with query, you can retrieve data from your database. Any type of data that you want to retrieve, you are the one that will determine what you want to retrieve. And so you can use your query to retrieve such data. Another importance is data manipulation. So you can modify data the way you want using your query, and that is one of the importance of query. You can fetch information in real time using query. You can customize the information or customize the data using query. And in terms of optimizing the performance of your system, you can use query depending on how the kind of query you send. You can use it to optimize the performance of your system. Another importance is for automation and analysis. You can also use query for integration as well as web search.
Okay, so I'm trying to turn it to PDF because it's not showing. So if it's in PDF, then I think it can show. So I think that's the best way to keep.
Okay.
To keep. Just give me some second, please. Just,
Okay, so let me pause.
yes. Let's see.
Do you want me to convert it and send to you?
Yes, if we can too. I can. I'm just trying to do
Okay,
something.
okay,
So,
okay, I can do that right away.
so just fine. Okay, I'm done.
So I sent it.
I've done it.
I've sent it. Okay.
Okay. Okay, now it should be fine. And the query keyword in programming. Yes. Okay, so you can continue.
Okay. So I was talking about the importance of query in programming. One of the importance is data retrieval. So while writing your program as well as working, you can use query to retrieve data from a data set stored within a database. You can use query to manipulate the data. For example, you want to update it or you want to delete it. You can use data to do that. Sorry, you can use query to do that. You can also use query to get your information in real time. So real time meaning immediately you can query the database and get information as the information is being provided or updated or inserted as the case may be. You can use query to create customization around your system. You can also use query for optimization of your system. You can use query for automation and analysis. You can use query to integrate as well as query for web search.
Okay, sir.
Next slide, please. So this slide talks about the concept of querying the database. Querying the database is essentially just to retrieve data, and any type of data you want to retrieve. Maybe you have a database, you want to get everybody in the age bracket of 1 to 10. Maybe you have a database that has customers with account number and balances in their account, and then you want to retrieve customers with account balances less than 10 naira, or you want to retrieve customers who opened account in the last 3 months. So you can use query to query database and get those data. Just depend on what you want as far as the data is within the database. You'll be able to use your query as a keyword to get it. So what it does is that it gives you a standardized way to communicate with the database. And one of such is the structured query language that you use, which is the SQL. For those of us that are familiar with databases, is a common, should I call it a tool that can be used to work in a relational database management system. So one of the ways it does is data retrieval. So you can retrieve specific data. So the keyword for you to use there will be the select. So you can use the select statement to select. So for example, I say, oh, I want to see, so I mean, I think everybody, yeah, we just did an election, not quite long. So you want to, in the voters register, you want to see every voter that is below the age of 20, for example. I mean, voting age starts at 18. So you want to just see those people who just got to 18 years or who are just 2 years above 18 years, for example. Or you want to see uh, voters who are 60 years and above. So you can use select statements to do that. The other one is data manipulation. Data manipulation will mean that you want to either update the data or you want to delete something or you want to insert something. So you can use any of such to manipulate your data. The third one there is data definition. So you may want to create a new set of data. You may want to create a new set of data, and you can use data definition. And the keyword there, you have the create, you have the alter, and you have the drop. The drop in this instance will mean that, for example, you want to you can say you want to take out a table, for example, within a database. You can drop such table. The next is data control. Data control means you want to look at the permissions, who should have access to the data and who shouldn't have access, what type of access. So, and there you have to use the grant or revoke. So if you want me to have access to the data, you will grant me access. If you feel, oh, I am, you don't want me to have the access again, so you revoke that access. Then we talk about data integrity, as well as data analysis and data transactions. Next slide, please. So this slide talks about the anatomy of query, which is the structure of how things work, how query itself work. So that is what this slide tells us about. So it enables us to know how we can use query to interact with relational databases. There are different statements there, or different statements there that we have used in our previous slide, like select, from, where, group by clause, having. So all these are the query that you can use to interact with your database, or rather statements that you can use to interact with your database. And each of them has a specific role it does when you use it in your query as statement. Next slide, please. So this slide, we're delving into the querying in web development. So in querying in web development is just making sure that you have interactions with the API in your web development. And in doing that, there are different forms of query that you can use to do that. There are certain statements like the HTTP methods, which will allow you to do a get, to do a post, put, and delete. These are actions that you can perform while querying in web development. You have the endpoint URL where you have specific endpoints that you have to interact with, and you have to do the write your queries to interact with the endpoint. You can as well parameterize your query as well to get specific content that you want to get. The same thing with the headers, your response handling, your passing and display, and error handling. For the response handling, once the API processes the query, it sends back a response. Responses typically include status codes indicating success or error, and a payload containing the requested data, or a confirmation of the performed action. Next slide, please. So the next slide talks about querying in programming languages. So what we have done here is to look at just 3 forms of querying in programming languages. The very common one, which is the structured query language, SQL. You have Python, and then you have the JavaScript. So we just brought out a few examples to guide us when querying in programming languages. So the first one there talks about the SQL. We'll try to put an example, which is a very, very common one. It's where you use a select statement to say select star from customer where age is. So for example, you want to get a list of customers within the database that their ages are 25, that are above 25 years. So you just use that to pull out those list of customers or set of customers that their ages are greater than 25 years. So the middle bar there, or middle box there, talks about using from Python. From Python, you can actually use the SQL Alchemy or Django ORM, and then we have an example there of what you can use it, how you can use it from SQL Alchemy import to get your data. In the area of JavaScript, the JavaScript is commonly used to query APIs to fetch data from remote servers. Libraries like Fetch or Axios simplify the process of making HTTP requests and handling responses. The next slide talks about the role of query, of the query keyword. So, like we've talked about, we've mentioned a lot of query keywords. Each of them have their specific role that they perform. That will now guide you on how to use them when you have the need to use them. So, because each specific one you use, it will determine the kind of outputs that you are going to get. So, I mean, if you're not sure of what you are looking for, then it becomes a little bit difficult. Or it may take you a longer time to get the kind of information that you are looking for. The first thing, which is the commonest one that we've talked about, is the select statement. It just retrieves data from a database table. So, for example, we say select star customers where age is greater than 25. Then we have insert. It means that you want to update, you want to add new data to, or new record to the information within the database. So you will use insert to insert such a record. So for example, you want to add, there are 10 students in the class. You want to add the 11th student, depending on the parameters you are using to do the addition, maybe name, maybe age, maybe gender. You can use the insert statement to do that. The next is update. You already have the data is already existing, but you just want to manipulate it and modify it as the case may be. So you use the update query keyword to effect such changes. Then you have the delete. Delete means you want to, I mean, maybe you are done with the data, you don't need it again for some reasons. So you will use delete to remove that record from the table. So you have the get, which is typically used in the space of HTTP. I mean, when you are doing your web development, you can use it to fetch data from the endpoint. So that's what get does. You have the post. Also in web development, you can use it to send new data to an API for processing. You have the put, which you use to update. So depending on the environment you find yourself, that depends on the query keyword that you will use in your statement. So in this case, put is updating existing data. That is when you are doing your when you are in your web development. But when you are trying to interact with the database, update is what you will use to modify the data. So you have the delete, which is what you use to remove record. And then you have the create, you have the alter, um, you have the drop, which is typically used for databases. You want to delete a table, for example, you can drop the table using your SQL. You have the call, which you use to execute a stored procedure within your database. So maybe you have something you want it to be running at certain intervals and certain frequencies. So you use call to call that procedure to run at that particular time that you want it to run. You have the search, sort, and then filter. Next slide, please. So we decided to also look at a few examples that are common. So this slide just talks about query keywords are vector tools across domains. Yes, they are. And then we'll try to look at, so the first one there is for database, which is the SQL, where we do retrieve, update, add, and delete data. So an example is fetch customer orders using select. So, for example, you have you have an online shop, for example, and you want to know how many customers that have ordered for pure water today, for example. So you can use that to find out, to select and know who are the customers that have ordered for pure water. You have the web API, which manage data via request. So an example would be create post via post. You have the data transformation, which talks about filter, group, and join data in C#. Then the middle bar talks about XML manipulation, which is where the example there, for example, is a select specific element, change values, and build new XML. Especially in search engines, you can retrieve relevant results based on queries. And the third talks about API documentation. You can generate and document API details. An example will be query APIs for documentation and schema generation. The next slide talks about practices for us to have effective queries. It is important that we write effective queries. If not, the outcome will not be pleasant. So if you have a query, for example, that is supposed to go fetch, that your intention is to just go fetch a particular data, there's a way you can write such query, and it will take more resources, it will take more time, and that will now become a problem to the system where you're trying to get such data from. So we need to apply certain practices to ensure that your query is optimized and you make the best use of resources while trying to run your queries. Number one there is have a clear goal. Start with a defined objective. What do I want to do? What do I want to get from this database, for example? And once you have that defined, it becomes a lot easier to navigate how to get such information. You need to understand the data. So you have to have a good understanding of where you want to get the data from, or else if you don't have that, you may just write something that will go on for lack of a better word, wild goose chase. And that will take a lot of time, waste your time and the time of every other person that will need such data. You have to plan your logic in such a way that you can break the task into logical steps, such that you probably don't run it all at once. Maybe this goes here to pick this data, this goes here to pick this data, and then you can probably join it at the end of the day. You use indexes. The importance of indexes is so that like I said before, you don't go on a wild goose chase. So, for example, you have a table that has customer's name, email addresses, home addresses, telephone number, and probably things they are buying. If you don't index the table using those particular barriers, it will become very difficult um, for you to get certain information. It will take you a longer time to get the information anyway. So you eventually get it, but the most important thing here is how long does it take and what is the cost of getting such information. So it's essential that your environment is indexed. You optimize where, filter early to reduce data, limit retrieval. So you don't pull everything, both what you need and what you don't need. You have to parameterize. What that does is that it helps you to prevent SQL injection. If you don't parameterize properly, you can have a situation where once there's an SQL injection, it will impact your operation. You use the join. The join is for you to join your statements together and get your data in the right form. Sometimes if you don't join properly, it can become a problem as well. So caution needs to be applied at that point. Aggregate carefully. Consider data types. Review your plan. Profile and benchmark. Normalize your data. Test your data. Maintain consistency. Use clear conventions, or else it will also become a problem. Then you document where you do a good documentation with clarity. Next slide, please. So this slide is talking about challenges. There is there is nothing that doesn't have its own setbacks. But the most important thing is, what do we need to do to navigate these challenges so that it doesn't impact our work? The number one on the list there is complex logic. It says crafting queries demand clear understanding of data relationship and conditions. So meaning you have to have a clear understanding. You have to have a clear understanding. You have to have a clear understanding so you don't create something complex that will become a problem. Number two, there is performance. You have to be mindful of balancing the data retrieval speed, the resource consumption. Sorry, there's so much noise. You have to balance. You have to balance the data retrieval speed with resource consumption, and for you to achieve that, you have to do a lot of optimization of your queries and your indices. So that's the way you can navigate issues around performance. Data volume. There are times where the data can be so much to retrieve, or where you want to retrieve data from, you have so much data there. Yeah, so you have to find a way to manage your data set such that it doesn't lead to slow query execution, and you now start having potential memory issues. Another challenge you can have is a suboptimal join. I've mentioned it before. If you don't do your join properly, it can actually become a problem rather than a solution at the end of the day. We also have the issue of SQL injection, which comes as a result of poor parameterization. But if it's done effectively, then you can avoid SQL injection. And then we also talked about data integrity. If you don't apply the right query, the integrity of your data become questionable, meaning the data may not be correct as expected. So you may be looking for Y, but you may not retrieve ESC. You may be looking for A, you may not retrieve B. You have retrieved a data, but the integrity of that data is questionable. Next slide, please. Yeah, so this slide is in the space of writing your queries. It is important that we have optimization at the back of our mind. Query optimization is a vital skill that focuses on improving the efficiency and performance of your database query. So it's important that one has the right skill to write an optimized query, or else it becomes a problem to both the system and the user that is trying to fetch or get such data or query such database. So this skill is crucial because it ensures that application runs smoothly, users receive timely responses, and database can handle increasingly data loads efficiently. So it's important that we pay attention to our queries so that it doesn't become a problem. And on that note, we conclude by just mentioning the fact that mastering query keyword is essential for effective programming. Like we've seen, it optimizes data retrieval, it boosts efficiency, it ensures security, as in the case of SQL injection, supports scalability, and proficiency. In your query, proficiency empowers seamless collaboration, sparks innovation, and enhances career prospect. This skill is a cornerstone for crafting high-performing, resilient application in today's tech landscape. So I will pause here for now. If there are questions, I'll be happy to take them, or there are comments, there are contributions. We are here to take them. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. Since you're pausing here for now, so you are not taking the conclusion part yet.
No, I've taken it. Okay. I mentioned the fact, yes, I've taken it.
Okay, that's good. That's good. So I just want to confirm from you, sir. So since you've taken the conclusion part. So now, the other question I want to ask is, I noticed that most of your slide was based on the part of Python, APIs, um, the query language, the web APIs. That's a good one. I want to ask, maybe if someone is getting into networking. Networking, I've heard of, they use nodes, they use these query nodes. So I don't know if anybody can just tell me more about it, like query, the keyword in query. They say they use it in networking. Anybody has networking experience?
So for networking, yeah, networking now is no longer the traditional. There are a lot of automation in the networking space. And there are a lot of automation tools that are used. So, for example, Ansible is one of them that you can use to automate your network configuration, especially routine tasks that you do in network configuration every day. So instead of having to start from scratch, you just automate the process. Um, so of course, because of that, then query becomes a keyword that can be used because it now has to do with programming in the network space. So that is something that is being done in the network space as of today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Any person that has any question? Anybody that has any question? Any other person? Okay, since there's no other person, I think the next person is Mr. Charles Chibueze. So, Mr. Charles, over to you. I'll stop presenting so that you can start presenting.
All right, thank you very much. Please permit me to share my screen.
Please feel free.
Okay. For very weird reasons, PowerPoint refuses to show on Google share screen. So I'll share the entire thing.
So I'm not the only one in that boat.
Yeah. Not.
Charles.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's true. I've struggled with it before. So I'm trying to close the window that's making noise so that it will be seamless. All right, please confirm you can see my screen and you can hear me properly.
Yes, I can see your screen. The query keyword in program.
Okay, thank you very much, and good afternoon, everyone. So I just want to take us through my presentation is not as elaborate as Mr. Ijiro's on. All right, so I think he has covered the bulk of everything that should be spoken about. Well, I'll just dive into the basics. So, welcome to this presentation. We'll be looking at the query keywords role in retrieving specific information from databases or collections of data. Um, I know many of us must have used either mobile apps or web applications where you need to retrieve data. Say, for example, your transaction history for a particular period, all right? Or you want to see, or maybe you have access to uh, a repository kind of software, HR information system, and maybe you want to see all those that were hired within a particular period, or all those that left within a particular period, or all those that were paid within a particular period, or all the males or the females that were maybe were paid or were given their bonus within a particular period. So that's one of the things that query keyword helps us to achieve. It helps us to manipulate databases, to arrange data. All right, and it's also good to know that it's not limited to working on just one database. All right, you can uh, conjoin the series of data from different databases to make it make sense. All right. So, if, for example, you want to see how the best five students of a particular school in each in the last five sessions have performed, you can write a query for it. So it's not limited to just looking at the database for a particular year. All right. So there could be different databases for different years. So you can look at similar rules or even different rules for different years, or to see maybe something like how much did the top five students of 2023 session pay for maybe hostel dues, all right? And how does the average weigh with the average of the top five for 2024? So it's all about data manipulation, data sanitization, control, and the likes. Look at it at a basic syntax. So it starts not maybe not always, but typically begins with the keyword select. All right. And I'm sure we'll be saying, yeah, this is something we just do on SQL, but like we saw in the previous presentation, it can be customized, you can modify it, all right? It can even be part of your body of code, but you need to ensure that it's parameterized to ensure that it doesn't, um, it's not vulnerable to SQL injection. So then you start with select, and it's followed by the columns, all right? That's the vertical columns you want to retrieve from a specific table, all right? The from keyword specifies the source of the source of the data that you are querying. Then the other keyword, the third one, which is this one here, where is used to define conditions or to format um, the data that is being extracted so that it looks arranged. So let's look at a sample. Let's look at a sample query here. So if you see this here, it says select country ID, country name. That is, you are extracting two columns from countries, yes, where region ID is equal to 1. And then you see order by country name. So what this will do is you are extracting two columns of data. There'll be a country ID, maybe 1, America, 2, Albania, 3, Australia, all right? Then from countries, that's from a database called countries. So that's what it does. Then region ID is equal to 1. So let's say region ID could be EMEA, the Europe, Middle East, and Africa region. Hello? Anybody there?
Yeah, we are here. We are still hearing you.
Can you
Okay, okay. I heard a sound, so I thought I was cut off.
No.
All right. So that's what it does basically. So the select just specifies the columns you want to retrieve from. The from indicates the table, that is the database you want to retrieve data from, and then where allows you to format or apply conditions to filter the results according to specific criteria. We'll look at order by next. So filtering data is like a fundamental aspect of using the query keyboard, all right? Because you have the data in raw form, and now you just want to get a specific kind of data that you want, all right? So you can retrieve rows that meet certain conditions using the where clause. For example, let's say employees with an age greater than 25. All right, so you can use this query, select star. Star means wildcard, that is all. Like you retrieve all the data in the column from employees, a table called employees. So retrieve all the data where the age is greater than 25, and it will present that to you. In terms of sorting your results, you see that you are able to retrieve data in ascending or in descending order, all right, using the order by clause. Look at this one, this previous slide, order by country name, that is arrange it by country name. So it could have been ascending or descending. So when you want to use ascending, you use the keyword ASC. When you want to use descending, use the keyword DSA. So look at here now, select star, that is select all the data from a table called products, all right? And then order by price, descending order. So what that means is you will get the most expensive product first, and then you will get cheaper products as you progress down the table. So I spoke about this earlier, joining tables. The keyword is, the query keyword rather, is powerful when it comes to combining data from multiple tables. So like I said, you're not restricted to just one table. You can use different types of join, like inner join, left join, right join, and it allows you to retrieve data based on relationships between the table. All right, so it's best used when you are trying to analyze data from different sources, so you can make sense out of it. You can also aggregate data using the query keyword. So for example, you can use functions like count, sum, average, max, mean. These are basic statistic functions that are already codified into the query keyword. And you can use it to analyze and summarize data. So if you are a data analyst, this will come in very handy for you. So for example, you see this here, select count star from orders. What this does for you is that it will give you total number of orders in the order database rather than presenting it to you. All right, it should just give you return the sum to you, so you can know the order. I mean the number of orders rather. Grouping and group functions. Grouping data using the group by clause, it helps you to organize results based on specific columns. All right. So you use the group by to organize results based on specific columns. Then you can now use functions like sum and average to apply to these groups. So for example, you look at this select department, all right, average bracket salary from employees group by department. So what that means is the department will now be the determining factor for each record of data. So for maths, you have the average salary for each employees. For English, you have the average salary for each employees and the likes of that. Okay. So those are basic queries. Now, just to touch a little on advanced queries, if you want to be more proficient here, you can explore advanced concepts. All right. You can use what we call nested queries, embedded queries, aliases, join conditions to manage very complex tables. And this will make a lot of sense because now we are dealing with scenarios where we have a lot of data to work with. So now you can apply the you can apply these advanced queries to be able to make sense of them. That's basically just it. So to conclude, the query keyword is a versatile tool for efficient data retrieval, analysis, and reporting. And like I said, you can use it directly on the database, or you can use it as part of your body of code using parameterized queries to retrieve data to work with a particular software that you are using or you are building. If you're interested in delving deeper, you can look at tutorials or online courses on query languages like SQL. I think SQL is the core one here. If you want to go further, like Mr. Ejiro said, you can look into Python. I don't know if R is part of them. I think R should be part of them because R is a language for data analysis. And additionally, you can use references to query language documentation and other related materials to skill up. So thank you very much, and I'm sure that you learned a lot from my very short presentation.
I'll say your presentation is short and bulky, and I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for the presentation. I really gained from it. Thank you, Mr. Chibueze Charles. And I want to ask a question which is based on querying, querying. Those keywords. I don't know who is used to C sharp. Remember then, using query, you can write query in two form, and then you can now say, okay, I can implement this with query. I can do this with query. Sometimes you use the query keyword. Sometimes you don't use the query keyword. Also in PHP, they'll say when you're writing your codes, the URL, if you put query, you put a question mark, in the URL, you can really alter, you can change some things. That's hard coding it using PHP. So I was asking myself with what you said about sorting, about searching for using the select keyword, all those things. Is there any other form that someone can use that query keyword? Maybe you can just let me know. Anybody, I just want to learn from anyone. Is there any other form?
Sorry, I didn't get the question. Sorry.
Is there any other form that someone can use the query keyword, in programming? Like in PHP, I can put the query keyword and I can change some things like an ID. So like, oh, I want to guess this ID of this particular product. You're using a URL. So that's part of the way at coding it in PHP. You can get a particular URL if it's not well, the route is not well done. So I can easily get the particular URL of a page and check it out. Now, if I'm using query again in C sharp, there's a way you use query whereby I can query some from particular entities and I'll get their information using the query to bypass it using another keyword called rank function. So I was asking, is there any other form, any other way that we use query in programming apart from sorting, apart from searching? Is there any other form that we can use again?
Okay, so apart from sorting and searching for data,
Yeah.
we can perform mathematical operations on data as well.
Okay, sir.
All right, like mean, median, mode, trend, range, and the likes of that. So it's not limited to just sorting and searching. There are a lot of operations that can be carried out on data, apart from sorting, searching, filtering, and whatnot. So those are more advanced things that people like Mr. Adriel will be able to tell us very well.
That's true. That's true.
Just to add to it, I think essentially here, what I mean, you can use any form of query that you are comfortable with. It just an opportunity or a way for you to manipulate data essentially to your advantage. Be it in a database, be it when you're writing a program, you just have this query different query keyword, depending on the kind of the way you want to do the data, whatever you want to do, it will not determine which of the keyword that you will use to manipulate your data. Either while you are doing your web development, doing your programming, or you are just managing database, or you are a data analyst, for example. So you have all these at your disposal, all these query at your disposal to be able to manipulate that data. So the focus is you being able to use any of these tool sets to manipulate your data to your advantage and do it optimally such that it doesn't impact the performance of the system and it doesn't waste your time, and so that you don't spend the whole day trying to get data, and at the end of the day it's either it's too late or you cannot use the data. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. So I want to create another link so that Mr. Adewale Akinlagun, the last presenter for this today's program, is going to present. So just give me some seconds as I send the link as a chat to this group. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Okay, I want to drop it on the chat now so we can just join in the second link. So here's the link. So they are both the second link. So I'll be waiting for everyone in the link. The second link. Okay, bye bye, everyone. Okay, so welcome to the second half of the program, and I would say that it has been very interesting, gaining a lot, having more understanding of querying, and I would say that this is the last phase, Mr. Adewale Akinlagun. So you can start presenting your slides so that we can gain from you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, good evening, everyone, once again. And I would say thank you to Mr. Ejiro and Mr. Charles. It's quite insightful what I've been able to learn thus far, and it's it's quite good information. So I would be sharing my screen now, and please you can let me know when you can see my screen, please. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes, Adewale, we can hear you.
Okay. Okay, so I'm sharing my screen. See, it's coming up. Don't know if you can see my screen.
It's up now.
Okay. Um, I don't know if my slide is showing.
It's
Sure, you
showing.
can go ahead.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So as I said, I think a lot of most of the things I would. So most of the things I will really be talking about will also be a form of just like saying it over again. With just an exception to just a case study, I will just be picking up from this. So we are looking at the query keyword in programming, and from the outlines, basically we'll just be looking at what the query language means in terms of what does query actually mean in itself, and then examples of queries in programming, and then we're taking Python as a case study for query language. um, so when we look at what the query language means, I know Saijiro and Sir Charles had mentioned it, and just to add to what they said, I know that when we're talking about query, we in the lay terms, we are talking about inquiries that we want to await response from. So, for example, when you say what is a query to someone, what the person is trying to talk about is about getting information, is about making an inquiry about something and getting information, then taking it to a more will I say technical way, we would say that query language actually has to just do with request and retrieve of data from a database. So when we are looking at query language in programming, we are talking about requesting and retrieving data from database and information system, and that is done by sending queries, and it's something that works on two ends. There is the user who is entering a structured and formal programming command, and then which is based on those queries that he's trying to get, and then there is a part where, like, will I say, the data source, the database, as the case may be, where it's trying to extract that data from. So it's a two-way thing. So query language itself, it follows specific pattern, specific structure, like we've seen in previous presentation, where we say select this from this, and or there is this structure to it, and then there is the data source where that information is coming from. So for example, like when Charles was speaking, where you want to get the best, for example, 10 students or best 10 employees from a database, you are sending a structured command. You are not just saying get me the 10 best students, but you are sending a structured a command to that data source to be able to retrieve the information that you need. So, and the query language may also be termed as database query language, as the case may be. So when we look at it, primarily we are just when we are talking about the query language, we are just basically talking about creating, accessing, and modifying data in and out of a database system. So for example, I want to select all from an employees table. I'm able to say, okay, I want to see all of the information for all of the employees for this particular organization. I'm able to get their employee ID. I'm able to get their name, their last name, their first name, their title, their address, and every other relevant information that will be present on this employees table, for example. So the query language basically is primarily about creating. So there's a part to create, there's a part to access, like what we can see from this screenshot, and then there's a part where you want to be able to modify. So in cases where, for example, an address of an employee has changed, you want to be able to update to modify such information. So we want to look at what are queries in programming, because the topic says query keyword in programming, the query keyword in programming. So what are queries in programming? So for example, when we are talking about database queries, in the context of database, we are referring to queries that are used to interact with is a popular language for querying relational database, and then you can use it to retrieve, to insert, to update, or to delete data. So these are like four functions, or four actions that you can take. So for example, when you say you want to select column one, column two from a table where this condition, what you are saying in terms of retrieving is that you are trying to place a condition, to say I want, from like the previous pages, I want to see only, for example, the customer's employee ID and the customer's address, maybe for from specific reporting purpose. So in this kind of scenario, what we are saying is that the structure query language follows in this format to be able to query data from that database. I also know during the presentation of Mr. Ejiri mentioned something about API queries, so I'll just also just say one or two things about that. So API queries, as he also mentioned, for example, there are several methods that we can use to get information, to communicate with APIs and retrieve certain specific information. So, for example, when you are using a get method on an API, you are trying to communicate to get specific information from from a resource. So there are several methods, the get, the post, and we're using it to communicate and retrieve specific information from. So an example is what I've shown below, using Python API get to request for specific data from from a data source. So these API queries are also an example of queries in programming. And then the search queries. I'll also make reference to the first presentation where we talked about in web development or data analysis. The queries are often used to search, and they are used to filter through large data sets. So, for example, you want to be able to query specific records which match certain criteria. So, for example, you want to be able to get maybe electronics details or electronic section. For example, when you go on a web page, for example, and you want to be able to filter. So the word filter, you want to be able to search through and say, okay, I want to be able to see, maybe for example, an e-commerce where you want to be able to only see electronic devices. What is happening behind is that you are, as a user, maybe as a user might just see that, okay, I'm filtering for this, but what is happening behind is this filtering based on the parameters that have been passed by the user on the front end. Then there is the command line queries, and these examples are like for Unix like system. So, for example, when you are working on maybe, for example, Linux or Ubuntu, and there is like a failure at a point, and you want to be able to get log, you can use like the grep error log.txt. That is also a form of query, because you are trying to retrieve information to know what has happened, what has, for example, caused this crash, or what has, for example, caused this application from running. So using this command line search is also a way of, as we mentioned from the beginning, that when we are talking about query, we are saying we are trying to filter, we are trying to retrieve certain information based on certain parameters or certain conditions. as the case may be. And then also database ORMs. I would also make reference also to the first presentation that talked about this using the SQL Alchemy query in Python. This is also another form of query in programming. Then I would go to Python as a case study. So I would like to use um, Python to mirror what we are trying to talk about, the query keyword in programming, because for each programming languages, they have different data structure, and accessing those data structure also comes in various ways. So using Python, for example, Python has various data structure like the list, the tuples, and the dictionary. So for example, like we can see the list here is it allows for storing and manipulating a collection of items. And lists are mutable. For example, that means that for a list, as you can see, it has, for this example that I'm showing here, 1, 2, 3, hello world and true. It means that I can add more information to this. I can delete information from this. I can gather information from this. But being mutable means that I can either change the content of what is stored in this data structure, as the case may be. Then the next one is tuple, which is similar to list, but tuples are also used to store and manipulate, but the only difference is that they are immutable. That means that their elements cannot change. Once it has been created, it goes with that. The only thing that can happen is once is deleted, but the content, for example, like this tuple I have, which is 1, 2, 3, hello and true, the content will remain the same. I can't insert, I can't update information. And then the third one that I'm also looking at is dictionaries in Python. So dictionaries are also like they're also built-in data structure in Python, and they allow to store and retrieve data in a structured manner. And the difference for dictionaries and list and tuple is that dictionary follows a key pair value. For example, so we can see that in this dictionary there's a name, and the key here is the name, the value is a day, age is the key, 22 is the value. So it follows a key pair value. So it follows that structured manner, so that you are pairing keys with values, and it's in a way provides a fast and efficient data access by allowing the users to be able to look up data based on their associated key. So it makes data retrieval very quick and efficient. Okay, so I just took a step further just to show an example of how to access elements in this common data structure. So for example, I for the list, where I have a list of 5, 10, 15, and 20, and I want to be able to access, like, get information, retrieve information from, because for list, the index starts at 0, so it fits. So for accessing the first element, you pass in the parameter 0, which retrieves the item number 5, which is the first element in that. So in this first line is more like a query to say I want to be able to retrieve the first element in this list, as the case may be. And then when we go to dictionaries, also using the keys, for example, like this dictionary that we have, which is name John, age 30, city New York, and I'm passing this parameter to say in my dictionary, the name. What I'm saying is that I'm trying to access this data, and I'm trying to get the name John. Also, we can also access it using the get method, which is similar to will I say the API one that I mentioned. But using this dictionary, we can say age equals to my dictionary dot get age. So I did a sample code example just to show a dictionary a dictionary set of data and how to query information from that dictionary. So permit me to just take it one step. Let me just escape this, and then can you still see my screen, please?
Yes, I can see. I can see programming Python.
Yeah. So that I shared in the presentation is just this. So if you look at this data set, it's a data set for books, for example, and this it contains for example, book one, book two, book three, and book four, title, the author, and the year. So when we look at this the get book details function, what we are saying is that we want to be able to take inputs and search the books dictionary, this books dictionary, for a book with a matching title, for example. And if it returns, so if it returns, if we look at this, if it returns it, it returns back the details of that book. And then if it doesn't find it, it returns not found. So let me just quickly run through this. So we can see that I'm querying here. I'm querying this to return to say I'm querying this information in line 14, and I'm also querying this information in line 26. And so once I do that, we can see that what returns for line 14, it could find this machine learning basics in this data set, as the case may be. In this, we can see it there, and that's why it was able to, based on this query, it was able to return the title, the author, the publication, and the book. But for the other query, which was machine advanced Python techniques, because this information was not present in this data set, it returned as not found. So these are just example of just retrieving data using Python as a case study. I think I have come to the end of my presentation. Thank you.
Okay, I want to ask you a question. Can you go to the beginning of the slide, please, before you stop presenting? Can you go to the
Okay,
beginning of the slide?
beginning.
Yes.
Okay,
There's one
beginning.
particular. Yes, there's. Can you move to the next one, please?
Okay,
The next one, please. The next one.
okay.
Okay, now this part, now the query language. First one, any
Yes,
computer programming language that requests and retrieve data from database and information system by sending queries. It works on
yes,
user entered structures and formal programming command based queries to find and extract data from hosts databases. So
yes,
the last one is the conclusion, host databases. Sometimes you don't need to use
yes.
a database. Is there any other form someone can use without using database? Maybe for just a temporary moment. Is there anything that someone can use apart from database?
I don't know. Mr. Ejiro, can you help me with that? I'm trying to think from apart from whose database.
Like we've talked about querying when you're doing your web development, when you're doing API querying API, you are querying a particular endpoint. It might not necessarily be a database. It's just something that has it may not be as structured like your Oracle database or your Postgre or your MySQL or Microsoft SQL databases. So yes, there is you can query other forms of data sets, not necessarily sitting inside databases.
Okay, thank you so much.
So thank you, Mr. Ejiro. Just to add to that, so we can say um other things like like cloud storage, is that correct? Or distributed file systems, as the case may be, without a database host.
No, it may not be a cloud storage. It may just be a distributed data system. It's
Okay.
just a set of data. yes, database is usually the most commonest places to go query for information. But I think what Mr. Israel is asking, if it's not a database, does it mean we can't uh, write a query to retrieve or fetch data from it? Yes, we can. It might not necessarily be a data. It might just be a large Excel file, for example, and you need to get data out of it.
Yeah,
Hey,
correct.
you go
Correct.
there and get your data. So it's not like an Excel that has maybe you have Excel that has thousands of lines, not just 10 or 100 lines that you can just scroll down and see. You, you go there and get you can do a query to get it.
Yeah, correct.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, thank you. Can we move to your next slide, please? That's the last one for today. That's the last one. Okay, now,
The-
no, yes. Now this one is like a query you wrote. Select everything from employees. That's a
yes.
good one. Yes. And what do you call it? What syntax is this? Is it for just normal SQL or
Yeah.
just
Yes.
normal SQL? Okay. Okay. Like the output format. What format is this output?
So this output format. Sorry, can you say that again? Sorry.
Like the output, it came out in this output. You think this is from a picture or is a program language you wrote?
No, no, no. It's from a picture actually. It's
Okay.
from
No,
a
this
picture.
is the data. Sorry, I think this is the data set you are querying now.
Yes.
Yes, it's
This,
actually the
this is the
output.
table. This is
Yes.
the data set you want to query. So from here, you probably want to get maybe you say select. Okay, this one will scan the entire table. This statement will scan the entire table. But maybe you want to get an employee that his age. Okay, there's no age.
Mm.
Okay, you have is it
Employee ID.
Yes.
the
Last name.
employee ID,
Yes.
last name, first name. So it's possible there are two people with the same first name. So you want to select from inside here the Nancy, for example. So it will return any line that has Nancy. So this is not the output, but this is my understanding. Oh, sorry, this is not the output, but this is um, the source where you want to go and get the data from.
Okay. Okay. That's a good one. I just remember then I did a project in which I used the data instead of using database, I used JSON to store those data. So I was querying from JSON directly instead of using them to database. So when I did temporarily, so I was able to get a format out. So that's why I was asking that this format you got in this one because I saw MFD underscore ID and employee ID having the same format of output. So I was like, okay, it's a good one. I wanted to ask more question, but since there's a picture, I would it from there. Thank you so much,
Okay.
everyone. I really gained from today's webinar. Thank you, Mr. Ejiro, the father figure. I appreciate it, sir. Mr. Adiwale, thank you so much. Yes, and then Mr. Chibu Eze Charles, thank you so much. And for everyone that joined, I say thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Israel. Thank you for putting this platform together. And I mean, is an opportunity for us to learn. Like I always tell people, we learn every day, and nobody has monopoly of knowledge. As each day passes, you must learn one thing, and having put this platform together and getting us to come and share our thoughts and share our knowledge, I think is kudos to you. Well done. You are doing well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, everyone, too. Without you, I won't have the ginger, I won't have the energy to do all this thing. So, the link, I would like to place the link now. So that's after this. I just want to check our YouTube channel to see if I can drop the link now, so that you can share the link with anyone around you. Okay, this is the keyword in programming. So thank you everyone too. Yes, without you, I won't have the ginger, I won't have the energy to do all this. I want you to just subscribe, please. If you have not subscribed, as I drop the link here, please subscribe. Please share with others. Please like it. Please comment. Comment is very important. Comments are so important. We want it to be very organic. Thank you so much, everyone, and have a lovely weekend as it continues.
Yeah, thank you as well. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, bye bye.